Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Funny Wine Girl, aka Janine Luby. And here we are into July already. I know I always say this every month, but I swear to God, I had this conversation this morning with a friend. She's a retired teacher, and she said she used to say, once July 4th comes around, look out, and they'd be prepared to go back to school. But it seems like every summer just seems to go by so quickly. But here we are in July, and I'm excited for this week's guest. And now I'm just realizing the irony as I say, Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. And we're going to be talking about sobriety, recovery, addiction. And that's okay because that can exist in a world with alcohol and wine. And, we'll get into that too. But I always like to say a little bit too first about how I know my guest. So, my guest this week is Rose Nogan. And I like to share every week just how I'm connected to someone because, and this is for some folks might be like, all right, Janine, this is annoying or we get it. But I like to say, because maybe it hits home with somebody, that we really do. It's so valuable to us to connect with people, to get out there, to be curious, to want to learn things, to, when you're out somewhere and someone tells you what they do and they give you their business card, you might not think, oh, well, I need this service, but maybe you find the person interesting anyway and you keep their business card. And then later you can help them or they can help you. And I just think it's great to have a network of interesting people in my life. I love to learn new things. So I just think it's really cool to be out there and trying new things, connecting with people. So Rose is someone that I got connected to. You often hear me say different women I connect through other great women. And I think that's pretty much how we got connected, through some of the other wonderful women in my life, like Megan Alpert, who's been on the podcast, Trish Dickert Nieves. A group of us got together because we're going to be working together on something really cool, workshops for women next year. And so I think that's kind of when Rose and I connected. But I had, of course, I'd heard good things about Rose. I had seen her on social media. So that's kind of how we got connected. And again, I think it's so great to collaborate, get out there with like-minded people, and we can keep making a positive difference. So without further ado, welcome, Rose. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Janine. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. And it's funny because I'll go, is that the right recollection? I think that's kind of how we first met. When we got together with Trish and all that. But of course, I had seen your name involved with other folks, and different things. And I guess when Megan was planning this summer's workshops, you were on the list there. And I feel like I had heard your name before that, but then we kind of got connected, I think, after that.
Yeah, I think that's how it happened. We met in line at the cafe and we're like, hey, I think we're doing something together. And and then we started putting the pieces together.
Yeah, yeah. And I
Mhm,
look forward to what we're going to do together. And there's so many wonderful women doing all kinds of great things. And I love as we come together, we're even more powerful. But
mhm.
we have a lot to talk about today. And I mean, like I was like listening to myself say Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. And I'm like, okay, we're going to talk about addiction. And a lot of people think this podcast is about wine. And maybe I should have changed the name, but I do like wine. But when I named it that, I was like thinking uncork as in someone opening up, sharing their story. Um, I'm going to dive in. I do want to hear your story, but let me ask you while it's on top of mine, because with perimenopause, I might forget in 15 minutes. Does it make you like, how do you, and again, you can't speak for everyone in recovery. Does it make you feel uncomfortable or weird? Like, does it seem odd that you're like, oh, I'm a guest on this podcast called Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl? Does that seem, or does it bring anything up, or does it seem not right or anything?
I just thought it was funny. I also saw the irony in it, and I was telling people that I was going to be on your podcast, and we all had like a little chuckle. So,
Okay,
yeah, that's about
good.
it. Yeah, it doesn't make me feel uncomfortable at all.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I think of that sometimes, and I mean we try, many of us try our best to be like respectful, and it's like, because you never know sometimes when you are having a party or if you're out and you say to someone you want to drink, you don't always know
Mhm.
who's sober or whatever, and it's not like they need to wear a badge. Hey, I'm sober. It's not like you need to do that, but some people you do know, and
Mhm.
they might tell you, and then be respectful and offer a certain kind of beverage, or you're just mindful of that. But sometimes you don't know and you don't want to be disrespectful. But I think we do have a culture, and there's a lot of talk about this online now, and in real life too. We do have a culture that I guess I never mind it until I'm seeing other people talk about now, that like drinking has been a really big accepted part of our culture.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it really has. And people handle it differently. Like when they find out I don't drink or other people don't drink, it's been 17 years since I drank. So I don't even think about it. It's not an issue. My whole life is just this is how I live now. I go to concerts, I go to parties, like I go, if I have like a reason to be in a bar, like if music is playing or something, like, I'll be the first one on the dance floor, because everybody else needs to wait until they're drunk to like
Yeah, that's right.
to
That's right.
jump out. I'm like, yeah, this is great. So, I don't mind, but some people are very conscious of not wanting to make people feel uncomfortable, so they'll hide it. They'll keep it in their fridge. It's like they don't want to talk about it because they don't know how to handle it. So I feel like people that don't drink, it's sort of up to them to figure out what's, okay for them and what isn't okay for them. And then you just sort of communicate it to other people if need be.
Yeah. And that's kind of like anything in life. Communication is the key, whether we're talking about addiction, sobriety, or whatever. You need to tell, your needs or what's going on. I feel like through the years, I do have a friend who's in recovery, and I remember wondering if it was okay when we did go to dinner, if it was okay for me to get a glass of wine. Cause I'm like, oh, is that going to make him feel uncomfortable? And I think
Mhm.
I just asked, and, then
Yeah,
he's just like, oh yeah, please go ahead. Cause you don't know, but that's the communication is really key about that sort of thing.
for sure. Yep. And it is very common. I mean, people drink. It's everywhere you go. But I know you and I spoke about like how it's more common nowadays for people to be sober curious, and like people that may not even be alcoholics to want to not drink as much. So, there's so many more options, which I'm so grateful for, because I was thinking about it. There before mocktails, there was like Shirley Temples. You know what I mean? Like,
I had those as a kid. I love those
yeah,
maraschino cherries.
yeah. So that would be like the only option, or you'd have to make up your own drink. Like, oh, could you put some orange juice and pineapple juice together with some soda and make believe that it's a, whatever. But now there's so many different places that offer like real legit mocktails, and they're so good. And I love that that's like a movement right now. And that's being more widely accepted because people are just more health conscious too. So I think they're looking into their health, and like they're like, oh wow, like if I drink a bunch, I feel like crap, and maybe I should take a little break or not drink as much.
Yeah. And I think things like dry January, I mean, we've been hearing that for years, but I think it's only, at least for me, I've only noticed in the past year to 2 years that mocktails are really becoming like you see them on menus, and they're like you're saying, legit. Like, I've had one or two, and like they're tasty. Like,
Mhm.
and of course I sit there going, this would, maybe you could always make this at home with a little vodka, but I mean, that misses the point. But I know I've had the mocktails and they do taste good. And it's like I sit there drinking it going, okay, I need to start doing this at home because this is refreshing. This is good.
Mhm.
I don't need the alcohol. And I like that a lot of restaurants and bars are putting those on the menu. And I think that is important because if someone feels comfortable being there, or if there's someone who maybe they don't feel they need, to be in recovery, but they want, like you're saying, sober curious, it gives them an option that's tasty while they're out. Maybe their friends are drinking. They don't have to. Maybe they're the driver, maybe like you said,
Mhm.
they just don't want to feel crappy in the morning, or they're an athlete who's like, you know what, I can't run as well when I drink too much, or I can't play whatever. And
Mhm.
it is good that we're having more of these options. And like you said, it's becoming more accepted. So that's good too.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely happy about that.
Yeah. What do you think? I do want to get to your story, but I mean, I don't know if you know from your perspective how this has become. Was it just one of those, I hate to say like marketing, but like a trend, like how this all of a sudden I feel like, oh, a lot of people I run into are like, yeah, I gave up drinking. Is it stuff that was in the media that you think happened? Or do you think something happened specifically that people are like, yeah, I think I want to cut back on drinking? Like, I do feel like the past couple of years, there's been more of a movement toward that.
I can't really pinpoint the specific thing that started that, but it's definitely part of the wellness movement. I think when people start looking into their health and like what they're ingesting and putting in their bodies, and you're paying attention to your nutrition and exercise, and you're looking at yourself as a whole person, you can't help but notice your alcohol intake, or if you're taking other substances, like because you're already in that mindset of trying to be healthy. So if you're starting to be aware of like what you're taking into your body, I think that's just like another thing that comes along with it naturally.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you look at it, I know for myself, like I do drink wine and I've cut back, I'll admit the past couple months, not as much as I would like, but I was aware of like we're talking about calories that I'm consuming that are empty calories, really. Sugar, because I prefer white
Mhm.
wines to red and they have more sugar typically. So
Mhm.
it's like, okay, that's something I need to, and of course, then I go, oh, by the way, Janine, it's a higher risk for breast cancer, for
Right.
liver cancer, stomach cancer, all these cancers. And I think that and an awareness in the media, thankfully, that people are like, oof, yeah, I don't want that. Or even like brain function. That's
Mhm.
something that scares me because I'm like, I have a pretty decent brain. I don't want, it's already being like, abused through these hormones going up and down. I don't want it to be, worse. So yeah, it's important, like you're saying, like seeing yourself as a whole. And I think that has made a difference.
Mhm.
I do find it interesting. And I think we talked about this briefly a couple weeks ago, the ads I'll see on Instagram where it's like, oh, you don't want a headache from that alcohol. And they're promoting like CBD or THC, like these little vials of things. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't know what's in them really because I don't fully understand all that. But it's like, isn't that like kind of replacing one thing for another? And do we know how safe that other stuff is? And I don't personally, but I just feel like I would question that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's good to question everything because that's what marketing is. That's how people make money. People see opportunities and they're like ready to jump all over it. And then all these new products come out because I see them too. I'm like, wow, what's that? You could get a little buzz from something and not get a hangover. And there's so many different things out there. So it's definitely a money making opportunity. It's just, the society that we live in.
Oh yeah, and I think we were. I don't know if you were at the one with Lisa at Megan's with the
Oh, I
workshop
missed
wellness.
that, but I
Yeah,
listened to your podcast with her.
Lisa, yeah, for folks listening, Lisa Regao, who used to be was a registered nurse and now she's in lifestyle medicine. But to her point, like she was saying, like that industry, like people do need to be careful because, like she said, you can make if she wanted to, but she doesn't want to be deceitful. She wants
Mhm.
to give people valuable information. Well, like we're saying those advertised things on Instagram. Between that and like I see the ads for mushroom coffee and this and that. Oh my God,
Oh,
so
yeah.
many products for women in perimenopause, and it's like it's shameful that they just get on this bandwagon because you could be spending $100 a month on supplements and they not only may they not be helping you, but you don't
Mhm.
know they could actually be hurting you.
Right, right, until some more research comes out, and then you're like, "Wow, I was a part of that." It's it's easy to get sucked into marketing, especially when you're on social media. Your brain is, and that's another addiction, like being on your phone and just like getting sucked into scrolling and marketing and advertising. We're really susceptible to all that. So it's really easy to fall into that trap. And like you said, we don't know what's in it. But once you click on one thing, because I'm in perimenopause probably too, and like I clicked on one thing and now I get text messages from them all the time. And those are the only ads that I see. And and I see the mushroom coffee too. And I'm like, wow, maybe I need that. Maybe I need that.
It's so funny when I was talking to Lisa and we talked about multivitamins and I said something like it's so ironic and stupid on my part, like, yeah, no, I don't know if I believe in multivitamins, but now I take 7 or 8 different supplements, like tell me how that makes sense. Instead of buying one bottle, I'm
Yep.
buying 7 different bottles and I'm practically choking half the time on all of them, and I'm like, no, but I don't think I want a multivitamin. It's like that's so stupid.
I know. I heard you say that. And I was thinking that too, because I'm like currently doing a cleanse, like a 7-day cleanse, and I'm on like day 4. And you're supposed to be taking these supplements in the morning. And I also bought a multivitamin like liquid. And I'm pretty sure it has all the same supplements in it, but I'm doing the same thing. I'm taking all these like pills that I could barely swallow.
We have good intentions. We
We do.
want to be healthy. It's just we're listening and we don't know how credible really it is. And I think there's a hint, I'll speak for myself. There's sometimes for me it's a hint of desperation or
Mm,
like frustration. You're like, I don't know. And for me, putting on the weight and stuff, it's like sometimes you want easy answers or you want like, oh, would this work? And
Mhm.
we know the bottom line, no matter how much crap is advertised to us, the basics are what we need to go back to. All
Exactly.
that stuff, the mindfulness, the intention. What are
Yes.
you putting in your body?
Mhm.
What are you doing? Are you moving? Are you getting outside? Are you having
Mhm.
healthy connections with people? All that stuff. That will never change. That's important always, right?
Yep. I agree 100%. It really is down to the basics. Like you said, just walking, going outside, trying to eat healthy, not being an extremist, as an addict or an alcoholic, and I'm sure other people too, like I'm an extremist. I used to just do things full force, like in either direction. And then I wouldn't be able to live up to my expectations, and then I would just quit and feel really bad about not following through with something. So now I just try to do the basics. I wake up, I try to drink a little bit of water. I take my dog for a 10-minute walk, get some light. And I do my research too. I try to learn about all of this stuff. Like if you go out, I don't know if you ever listen to Andrew Huberman. He
Hmm.
has, oh man, his podcast is so cool. He's a neuroscientist and he talks about all the different things that are helpful, but he breaks it down. And we need to get enough sleep. So if you go outside early in the morning when the sun's rising and get at least 10 minutes of sunlight, it starts to instigate our circadian rhythm. So once that gets instigated, then you'll be tired at night, and that releases our natural melatonin. So when we have sleep issues, sometimes we go to drinking, or we take like a sleeping pill or some kind of medication to help us sleep. But all you have to do is just go out in the sunlight in the morning for a couple minutes, and that naturally like releases the things that we need.
Yeah. I think movement helps too. I know I find for myself now that I'm not running as much, sometimes I'm not getting as much exercise, but the days that I really do, like I think it was yesterday, I swam in my friend's pool and I did like 25 laps. I was tired last night. So
Hmm.
I think when you do give yourself a good workout too, you're
Yep.
tired. So then you don't have that struggle of being, being up. Yeah. And
Exactly.
of course we talked before, like with Lisa and a couple other of my previous guests, that the sleep hygiene. I mean, the sad part is when you know the rules and you break them anyway for no reason. Like I'm on my phone literally up until like the last minute, which
Yep.
is not good. They say a
Hmm.
half an hour to an hour before you shouldn't be looking at your screen. And not only do I look at it, I'm looking at political bullshit.
Oh God, that's the worst right before bed.
Yes, yes.
Nightmares.
I know. And I know it. And I'm sitting there going, you shouldn't be doing this. And I do it
Yeah.
anyway. And it's like,
Yeah.
you're only hurting yourself. But like
Hmm.
that's probably common with a lot of, I mean, I shouldn't say because I don't know about addictions, but like a lot of times it's not a matter of like with smoking for years, the messages about how it's harmful. People know it's harmful, right? But they're
Hmm.
addicted. So it's not a matter of like, hey, did you know you're gonna get lung cancer? Yeah, I've heard that.
Hmm.
It's like so,
Right.
but it's in the brain, right? It's in the
Yes.
brain, or it's whatever is causing the addiction. It's not that you can just snap and get out of it, right?
Exactly, exactly. And that's like a really important message to get across, because I was thinking about like the stigma of addiction. And when people don't understand that it's like a disease, it's a mental health disorder. It's actually listed in the DSM-5 as like substance use disorder as a mental health issue. And even before it was listed in that, we knew like back in the 30s that alcoholism was a disease of the mind. So it's not like, addicts are bad people and they just choose to keep doing this over and over again. There's something that happens once you first pick up that drink or drug or whatever your drug of choice is or substance. It's almost like you become powerless over what happens next. And that's when you do all the scrolling and you're like, I want to stop, but I can't. And it's like the drinking, I want to stop, but I can't. And you're just like stuck in this loop, and it really is a disease of the mind.
Yeah, and they say, and I don't know if this is with everything or just with smoking. I read years ago about certain minds or something in the mind that would get people hooked or connect. Because in college, I would occasionally, like on Friday happy hour, I would have a cigarette. I would
Hmm.
have a cigarette or two, and I would like occasionally I would even buy a pack, but I would have it when I was drinking. I never became a smoker. And I
Hmm.
know I've read things about like I don't know if it's whatever's in the brain. And my dad smoked until I was born, and then he gave it up, but he had smoked 16 years. I was someone who literally only did it a happy hour at Penn State when I was drinking. And
Mhm.
then years later after that, I had a friend who smoked. And if I would go out with her and like have one or two, I hated the way my mouth felt in the morning. It was like,
Mhm.
oh, it's disgusting. And so I never became hooked to it. But I think it is something in the brain. And I don't know if that's the same with alcohol or not, but I don't know if that's the same for every addiction. There's certain things that could cause you to go, okay, now I need more cigarettes. Now I need more cigarettes. And I don't know the science of that, but
Yeah, there's definitely things that separate an addict and an alcoholic from like normal people. Um, and there's different factors, like there's genetics. Like if there's maybe not your parents, but maybe your grandparents or your uncle, somewhere in your, your family history, somebody had it and it gets passed down. And then with that and a mixture of like your environment, like how you were raised, maybe if you had some kind of trauma, Gabor Mate talks about like how addicts and alcoholics usually have some sort of trauma that they're trying to suppress, and that's how we deal with the pain. So there's all these different factors, and I don't know much about the science of the brain, and like maybe there is a part of us that like is different, like the brain is built different. So once we start ingesting it, it reacts differently than like the normal person. But when all of that is combined, it's like the perfect concoction of to be susceptible as an addict.
yeah, and we talked too before the podcast a couple of weeks ago. We were saying, and you had even said that time when we first met there, it really is. We could almost say, and maybe it's not fair to say, but almost everyone is addicted to something, or
Hmm.
has we I don't know. I would say maybe even an unhealthy connection to something, because whether you go, oh well, I don't drink, but maybe you're constantly on your phone, or I do see from people posting on social media, I do think there can be an addiction or an unhealthy relationship with exercise where it's
Hmm.
like all they talk about, it's all they do. And you're like, wow, you're losing a lot of weight, or, you know what I mean? Or
Hmm.
the not eating, or the only eating certain things. Like we've all got our things, and those can be, I would imagine, just as dangerous, or can have a very serious impact as well. Just be, it's like, oh, just because you don't drink doesn't mean you don't
Hmm.
maybe have an unhealthy connection with something or an addiction.
Yeah, I totally agree. And those things might come off as because the consequences may not look as severe. You know what I mean? Like you don't see somebody like you see somebody exercising and you're like, wow, they're healthy, but you don't see like what's going on the inside, or maybe they're having some kind of consequences that aren't as noticeable. Or like any other kind of addiction, maybe you could hide it a little bit better. But when you're an addict or alcoholic, your behaviors are all over for everybody to see, and it's so much easier to pinpoint and to judge and categorize. But as a society as a whole, we are definitely pretty much it's I wish I knew more about the chemicals in our mind, but I know that dopamine and serotonin have a lot to do with it. So, they talk about like dopamine detoxes where like you get away from your technology for a little bit because we get those little hits every time something excites us, but it's just like it's garbage hits. You know what I mean? It's not anything substantial or good or anything that lasts. It's just this temporary like fix. And then even if you're not like a full-blown addict or alcoholic, like we still have the same chemicals in our minds and we become these addicts addicted to other things.
Yeah, and I mean, when I was teaching at King's, I came across this really good video where this guy gave a talk about Facebook and how it was invented to give that, just like a casino, like what happens in the brain when you see all those cherries go across, or now it could be a bunch of aliens, whatever the hell is similar, that you win $1 million or whatever, or 100. In my case, 20. I'd be like, woo! You get that dopamine hit that excites you, and that's how they created Facebook. So I mean, and I'm not going to say we can't, like, we have to learn to be in charge of our own life and our bodies and our choices, but it's like, don't be too tough on yourselves. That's how they made it. They want us to be addicted to it. And like you're saying, they are garbage hits, because it's just like, oh, someone liked my video. And for me, my comedy, oh, so and so commented. And you
Mhm.
get that little, and it lasts for what, a second or 2 seconds.
Right.
And then I might go back to, yeah, but I'm feeling fat. I mean, it doesn't last long, and it doesn't do anything. And
Right.
I would say, and this is just my own little theory, I'm sure someone else has it out there. I think that's kind of why, too, that we're seeing so much extreme bullshit, because the basic little hits aren't enough anymore. So
Hmm.
everything's got to be either like way like horrible on one side or so good on the other. Like it's not good enough just to have that one little hit. It's got to, because people are like, yeah, what else you got? I mean, I kind
Right.
of feel that could be why that's happening. I don't know.
Oh boy. That, I mean, you really got it there. I mean, I love meditation and I love mindfulness. And I went to a meditation meeting the other night, and it's just so simple. You know, all we need to do is just breathe and just be in the present moment, because we keep chasing these things on the outside that we think are going to fix whatever is going on in the inside. And that's what happens. Like, we, with addiction, is like, oh, that didn't work. So I'm going to go bigger. I'm going to do harder. I'm going to do this and this and this. And like, you just keep trying to fill this hole, and we're not, so it's so important to just be mindful and aware of that, and to try to give yourself little breaks and bring yourself back to like the simple things, like we were talking about, the basics, just going out into nature, just taking a walk, like putting your phone down, just doing basic things, connecting, doing something creative. And that's what will fulfill us ultimately.
Yeah. I love that, and I 100% believe that. I have some things going on in my family right now with my dad's health we're looking into, and like I'm trying to like you said, the moment that is so important. I think, and it's so basic and we've heard it so much, right? So many times, but I think it is so true because if you're, and that's like the power of now, if you read that or listened to that by Eckhart Tolle, it really connected. I should say I connected with it years ago. And then of course you go about your life and you forget. But his whole thing was, if happiness is always ahead of you, then it's never with you. Right.
Hmm.
So you have to like be what is happening to you right now. And you hear this a lot. I've listened to a lot of people speak at, I'm involved with different things tied to mental health and mental illness. People saying, how do you feel right now? And like the senses and all that stuff. It is so important to acknowledge, like if you're feeling safe, if you're feeling happy, if you're breathing and you're in this moment, let's focus on where we're at right here. And I
Hmm.
felt that this morning. I met a friend for a walk at Naog, and then, she left. I went over, got a coffee, and I was sitting in a bench, not in a bench, because that would be kind of hard to do inside the wood. I was sitting on top of the seat of the bench by the flower garden. And it was just there. I hate to say this, but there are a few times when I feel such a sense of calm and peace, and I
Hmm.
was just feeling really good because I love being outdoors.
Hmm.
The garden was beautiful. It's sunny. It wasn't too warm. I could see people walking their dogs, other people talking, and I just felt so comfortable, so peaceful. And I was just like, now this is a moment I'm really enjoying. And I think we need to get back to more of that. And I don't know why it's taking us, so many of us, like to be reminded, and that we resist it or we say we're too busy, but yet these people who are too busy to eat lunch are like commenting on Facebook 10 times a day. You know,
Priorities.
exactly. And I'm not trying to judge or whatever, but like those are like you said, the basics that really could help us.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. And it's really hard. Like, I was up at Inner Harmony Wellness, and that's where I did the meditation. And that was my first time up there, and wow, it's such a beautiful property. And just being up there and looking like over the mountains and seeing the skyline, and it's just so easy to feel at peace when you're in a place like that. But then, going back, it's like going back home and going back to the noise and going back to the cars and the phone and the this and the that. It's really hard to disassociate and like detach from our surroundings when it's pretty much everywhere. So it really takes a lot of dedication and in like being very intentional with our practice. I mean, I have to practice every day. Like, I started putting my phone in my bathroom. I don't know if you listen to Mel Robbins at all.
Occasionally, yes. Hmm.
I remember her saying, she says very basic things, but sometimes they're like, wow, that's a good idea. She said, just plug your bath or charge your phone in the bathroom at night. So at night, I don't have the phone right by me and I don't wake up with it right next to my head. So at least I have like a little span of time where I'm not connected to it. So I try to just do like little things, but it's so much easier when you're in nature to feel at peace. And it's good to just do that intentionally every once in a while.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in that. In fact, I just started a couple weeks ago. I'm taking an online forest therapy certification course, and I'm only in module 2. There's like 11 of them, but I'm super excited because I know like how it feels for me. So I'm excited to learn and share with other people, because when I go to the state park to kayak or to, get out for a hike, or I used to run around there, there is nothing better than that my feeling there, because no matter how much crap, and I could be screaming at my computer, the dirtiest, like a sailor, screaming at my computer, but when I'm out there on the, kayaking and looking at the birds, I like, it's gone, it's forgotten about, and it
Mm-hmm.
just makes me feel so good. And it's funny, I have some friends who are like, yeah, you won't catch me out in the woods or whatever, and I guess I get it, but at the same time it's a shame, because there is such a sense of therapy and almost medicinal value to all of that. It's just so good for us.
I agree. I think that's so cool that you're doing that. I can't wait until you're certified and see, see what you do with it. I feel like more people are getting in tune with that because everything is so extreme right now. Everything just feels pretty like awful. And there's so many people that I think probably since COVID, maybe everyone wanted to get chickens. Everyone's talking about getting their own chickens, having their own eggs and doing their own gardening. And then people talking about like, oh man, we should get some land and like do a co-op. Like there's this inner longing. I feel like as humans, we just want to get back to that because we know something's not right. We know that like we're disconnected from something and it just doesn't feel right. So I feel like more people are getting in tune, and I'm hoping that the pendulum will swing to the opposite direction soon, and humans will prevail, and we won't get overtake. We won't be half computers, half. You know what I mean? Like.
Oh, trust me, I already have nightmares about a robot taking care of me in a nursing home and just like killing me or something.
Yeah. Who knows?
I worry.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about, so we got launched right into it, and that's because I'm sorry, that was me with my question, but I do want to have you give you the opportunity, however you want to share it, into whatever capacity, about your personal story, and then we'll get into like what helped you and how you're helping other people now.
Okay. I'm used to sharing my story a lot. I'm a part of a 12-step program, and that's what we do. But I'm going to keep it sort of general right now. I started, drinking when I was about 14 in high school. And that was, that was a feeling I chased for over 10 years. I became like really interested in partying. I wanted to feel a part of something. And I really liked going to parties. I liked keg parties. I loved getting wasted. I loved trying new substances. And it just gave me that sense of like freedom that I didn't feel like I had. I always felt like different from other people, and I didn't know how to connect socially. I had a really hard time socializing, but when I drank, all that went away, and I felt like I could just be myself and say whatever I wanted to and do whatever I wanted to. But I was blacking out. Like I wasn't, I like went full throttle. So at an early age, I was already blacking out. And, waking up in places I didn't know where I was, getting in trouble at home, driving under the influence at a young age. And, luckily nothing ever happened, but that's how it started. It started full force when I was in high school, and I just kept going. And some people, probably were that I hung out with, like they probably stopped as they got older and just started living a normal life. Or other people I know did pass away from like drug addiction, like overdoses and stuff, or wound up in jail or suicide. So I've had a lot of friends like pass away and stuff. It's very tragic. And, I continued to use like that outside of high school. I moved a lot. I went out west for a few years, and I just remember feeling very like empty inside and very desperate for some type of happiness, some type of just feeling good. I just did not feel good. And when I partied, I felt good. I felt like I was connecting. I was having a lot of fun, crazy experiences. But as time went on, the consequences got a little bit scarier. Um, and, I just kept going down this rabbit hole of like doing worse things, finding myself in scarier environments, moving around again, being in unhealthy like relationships, and not being able to keep a job, or I was even homeless a few times, making really poor decisions and thinking that it was like normal. I consciously made a decision to live in Tent City out in Portland, Oregon, because that was fun. you know, like who does that? I mean, it was fun, and I did have a lot of fun experiences, but things got a little shady and scary. So that took me back. Eventually, I wound up back to Scranton, and I also have like issues with codependency that I've had to work on. So as I was trying to escape the relationship that I was in at the time, it was around the same time that I realized, through help of a friend, that I probably had like alcoholism or issues with drinking. There's a lot that happened in between that time period, but I didn't know that that was the problem. I was going to therapy. I was, trying to work on myself. I was doing a lot of research. I was even going to like Zen monasteries and meditating. And I was always trying to search. I was always trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And but in the meantime, I was still drinking and using drugs and making poor choices, not seeing that that was the actual problem. So when I did finally get sober, it was basically at a time where I just felt really desperate, and I felt very alone, and I had nowhere else to turn. And luckily, a friend of mine, that I worked with was able to, guide me into recovery. And, his support group became my support group. And that's really how it started for me. So usually with addicts and alcoholics, we need to hit some kind of like crazy bottom, like where, and it could look like a bottom on the outside where like we say jails, institutions are death. You might wind up in jail, you might wind up in rehab, or unfortunately, a lot of people die. And for me, it was like an inner death. Like I was just so lost and gone, and I literally had nothing. And that was the beginning of my journey. And I did have one slip along the way. But and then I wound up going to rehab. Excuse me. And I've been sober 17 years now. So this month, actually.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah. And so like some of the things that have worked for me, like I said, I'm a part of a 12-step program, and that that has really helped me, because what happens is our brain is so used to, drinking and using, yes, but our whole way of life, we are programmed to live a certain type of way. Like we're addicted to the chaos, the relationships, like we don't know how to connect with people any other way. So all of that stuff needed to change. And, through the process, I've had to rewire my brain, and we call it like a psychic change, which, basically means that like we're rethinking the way that we're normally thinking. So I like this thinking about neuroplasticity, because our brain can actually, rewire itself to create new habits. And so along with the 12-step program, like I've had to learn how to connect with some kind of spirituality, something that made me feel like not so alone. Along with like creating a support group of people that like also understood what I was going through. And I've made some like really wonderful friends along the way. And, and I've been doing yoga throughout all this as well. And that has helped me. Yoga, meditation. I needed those practices to really always guide me back to myself. And, yoga has taken on a different meaning for me now. Like in the past, I've had my stints where like a lot of our friends were doing it together. We were practicing headstands and like, arm balances and all this crazy shit. But now I'm just like, I just want to do light breathing and stretching and very meditative. And because yoga is it's a moving meditation. So I really appreciate any practice that brings me back to myself and brings me back to the present moment. So that has been very crucial. And just understanding how my body works, like as a female, you talk about perimenopause a lot, but that stuff is real. Like I've heard of women, relapsing over PMS. And it may sound basic, but it's not, because I wasn't keeping track of my cycle. I wasn't keeping track of why I was acting so crazy. The feelings and thoughts get so overwhelming and so unbearable that we don't have any other coping skills. Um,
Yeah.
so, learning about my body, learning about nutrition, and I really try to take a holistic approach where I take care of my mental health. I take care of my physical health, my spirituality, and even like my home environment, like it has to feel a certain type of way. Um, and just keeping connections with other people. And I'm really, like you said in the beginning, trying to make new connections with people, because unfortunately, when you're only friends with people that are in recovery, some of them like die, and and it's like, oh shit, like there goes some of my friends, and then, or they just are going down a different path, and then, so I've learned how to adapt and like move on and let people go and things like that. But it's hard making new friends when you're in your 40s and you're a mom. So like it's really uncomfortable. But like, I am trying, and I really am trying to branch out. And so that sort of brings it full circle, I guess, to meeting you and Megan and Trish and all the other girls like in our little wellness group, and people that are on the same path and just trying to be healthy. Um, so that's sort of where I'm at now. And I'm a mom. I have 2 kids, and that takes up most of my time. I have a female sober house, so that helps women that are in recovery just
Yeah,
getting out.
let's talk about that so people understand. Is it Whitetail Sober Living? Is that the right?
Yep, Whitetail Sober Living.
And so how does that work? Just so people, in case they're listening and go, okay, this might help my so and so or a friend. Talk to us about that and how people could learn more about that and maybe even get connected to you there.
Sure. So Whitetail Sober Living is a female sober house, which just basically means that it's a step down from either treatment. So if somebody's in inpatient rehab and they need somewhere to go and live before they go out on their own, they don't have a safe environment, they come to a sober house. Or sometimes like after like a partial hospitalization or a halfway house, they'll step down to the sober house. And after the sober house, the goal is to eventually be able to move out on their own. So while they're in the house, obviously there's no using or drinking. There's some rules that are in place, but it really gives them the opportunity to get their feet on the ground, to get employment, to get a good foundation in their recovery, build connections, save up some money, and then the hope is that they have that foundation and then move out and get their own apartment.
So are they, and this could be a stupid question, but I'm sure, some people might have a harder time than others, like sticking to the rules or whatever. Excuse me. Is there like counseling there or a counselor or someone to kind of help guide to make sure everyone kind of stays on the right path?
So I have a house manager, and I'm also a CRS, which is a certified recovery specialist. So I'm able to work with them as their CRS as well. So they have like built-in support where they could always talk to the house manager who's also in recovery. And then I meet with the girls individually once a week. And what I also do is, since we don't have an on-site therapist, if they need mental health, help, I will give them the resources that they need. So I'm sort of like the middleman between them and the connection with all the resources in the community. So I can sort of assess what they need and then give them all the resources they need to take care of that.
Would you say that there's enough resources in our area right now? Because I know there's a long wait when it comes to mental health,
Mm.
regardless of recovery or not. But just it's a field that seems to be kind of overrun right now, and I feel like every person in this on the planet could use some help with that. I'm not trying to be funny, but like
Mhm.
a lot of
Mhm.
people could use some help with that. But do you find that there's enough resources overall?
No. Um, I especially with the mental health. Like I try to get these girls to see a psychiatrist and get their meds filled and sometimes like the wait is ridiculous. It's like months away and then they're left with no medication. And there's only a few places that are able to prescribe medication. So that has been an issue. And then finding like ones that are somewhat ethical is really hard. Like those two
Mm.
things usually don't coincide. Um, so that is very difficult. And then with the therapy, sometimes there's a wait. There are a lot of therapists, but it depends on a lot of the girls are on Medicaid. So not everybody takes Medicaid. So then there's like a longer wait. So yeah, we've run into some issues with the mental health for sure.
Yeah. How about with employment? Because, we talked a little bit at the beginning about stigma, and unfortunately, that stigma exists for mental health. It exists
Mhm.
for, alcoholism or drug use, substance use disorder. Do you find that there are, again, enough people in the area who are willing to hire people? I mean, and I don't know if it's even legal to ask, but sometimes people learn these things anyway.
Mhm. Well, usually if someone gets denied a job, it's because of their background. It's not necessarily because of the label, addict, but they wind up having felonies or misdemeanors that keep them from getting employment, which, yes, I feel terrible. Like these girls have a very hard time finding employment. And if they have, so they can only get certain kinds of jobs. And then sometimes, especially if you don't have an education or a high school diploma or any kind of degree, which most of them don't, um, the jobs that they do wind up getting isn't enough to be able to cover all of their rent sometimes, let alone be able to save up and get their own apartment. So it's it's a dilemma. It really is.
Yeah. I mean, I won't go off on this topic, but given what's happening with our administration right now and Medicaid being slashed, it can be very maddening to hear people who don't understand, and it's like, oh, they need to work. Well, it's not that simple. You know what I mean? Like these
Hmm.
folks who are trying to get their lives on track and they do want to work, but either maybe can't get a job or they do, and it simply is not enough. I mean, that's
Hmm.
one thing we don't talk about enough. It's like, certain things don't pay. Certain fields
Hmm.
don't pay, so
Hmm.
when the cost of living keeps going like this, but pay is here,
Hmm.
who's going to fill that gap in between? And I had gone on Instagram this week because I was so frustrated because there is an ignorance. And again, I'm sorry, I'm not going to go too much on this, but there's an ignorance and a misunderstanding about people who need this. I left a job that was paying well over 10 years ago because I wanted to do my laughter yoga and things like that. And it's not always easy. So I, for 2 years, throughout the past 10 years, two different times, was on Medicaid because I
Hmm.
didn't have enough of an income.
Hmm.
And I probably could have even been on it this year, but I mean, you talk about not everyone takes it, and there's a
Hmm.
certain stigma even with that. So I said, okay, I'll just pay out of pocket
Hmm.
from the
Hmm.
Affordable Care Act. So I do that. But people need to understand, because if they look at me and they know me, oh well, we know you, Janine, we like or whatever. Yeah, and I've had to use Medicaid twice
Hmm.
because what I do is not something that people fully understand and are not like, so granted, I'll take responsibility. Am I out there hitting the pavement every morning? Not as much as I should be. So yeah, it's a give and take. But then there's people who want you to come do things for free all the time. And I've
Hmm.
been through that. So it's like people need to understand all of this to get
Yes.
the big picture and stop
Hmm.
seeing through their own, I'm sorry, I will say ignorant lens, or listening to a narrative that is missing a whole bunch of information, important facts that people need to hear. So
Yes, I agree because I was on Medicaid. I mean, that's part of my story too, because I came from nothing and I had to work my way up to get to where I am. So I was on Medicaid for years. And I think the hardest part is like once you get off of it, because I had help with daycare, I had dental, I had vision, I had good health insurance. Like, I had all of that help. And then as soon as you make like a couple dollars over the limit, they drop you. And then you're like, oh my God, I don't make enough to pay for all of this stuff that they were just paying for. And you're left scrambling. There's like no in between. But that was that's the goal, is like eventually I would like to get off of that. You know what I mean? I would like to be able, and I try to empower these women to like, yes, this is here, this is a good tool. And there's all these resources that you could get for free. There is a lot in Scranton that help people in recovery that are free, or Medicaid covers. But eventually, like, I don't want people to get stuck in that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's there, it's a tool, but eventually you want to be able to build yourself up enough to not need that anymore, and to let it be available for, someone else that might need it a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a good way to have a thought about around it, I should say, or an approach to it. Use it when you need it. And that's like, I'll admit for myself, I was on it 2 years. And like I said, I could have been on it again. Cause as a solopreneur, like I work for myself, I do the marketing work and I do the Laugh to Live. Sometimes I don't know what the year ahead is going to look like.
Hmm.
And that's why I was on it twice. But it's like, I felt, and I don't know if that was like, I felt a little, I don't want to say shame, because I don't judge anyone who's on it, but I felt like, well, not me. I don't need to be on it.
Yes.
And I was twice, and it was like so much paperwork. And like I said, so a lot of the doctors didn't take it. And I was like, screw it, I'll just pay. But I mean, I don't have vision.
Hmm.
I haven't had
Hmm.
that since I worked for Blue Cross, when I could get it from them. And now my dental is separate. So it's like, people don't understand this. And it's like, it's not like, oh, yeah, I do work and I have a master's degree, but this is
Hmm.
our culture. And I don't want to go down this path, because this could take us like for days. We could take this track or journey of a conversation. What do we value in this country?
Hmm.
Engineers get paid a ton of money, or like, these billionaires, what are their jobs? But like the wellness, sector, when I'm in and things. And again, I have to be accountable, because I've not been tough enough with people with how much my cost should be,
Hmm.
and I have to get better about that. But it's also what we value in this world, or in this country, I should say. Certain things are valued and certain things aren't. Like, even like the arts aspect of it, people will ask, comedy or comedians or whatever, come and do, anybody in the arts, come and do something for free. I always use the example, ask a tree cutter to cut a tree for free, or an HVAC person to fix your air. They would laugh. They'd be like, sorry, I'm on to 10 other customers. And
Right.
it's what we value. And our values really need a shift. But I'll stop there before I start spinning like a top, because that's just, but lately with this whole thing with Medicaid, it's just, I get so sick of reading the ignorance, because people don't understand it. And maybe they haven't had to be impacted, or maybe, I don't know, they must really isolate themselves or insulate themselves, because it's not just about, oh, well, she doesn't want to work, or they don't want to work, or no,
Right.
it's
Right.
not that. It is absolutely not that. And I wish people would open up their, take the blinders off a little bit. It would be helpful.
Yeah. Well, not everything is black and white. You know what I mean? Like, you
Yep.
can't judge everyone that's on it. Yeah, I'm sure there's some people that take advantage of the system. I know there are. But then there's some people like us that, we needed it.
Yeah.
And the girls at the house, they need it. And they're really struggling. They're trying to get their feet back on the ground. But that might be the same mindset of people that don't understand addiction either, that are still judgmental about it. Like, oh, they should just stop, or, why are they still doing that? Like, it, so it's just certain types of people and the frame of mind, and we just have to do the best that we can. And I really have, over the years, tried to work on my frame of mind. And because I was in a very like lack mentality, where I was sort of stuck in perpetual, what's it like, I was always like in a poverty mindset,
Hmm.
because I was used to being in that and always getting help and not thinking that I could ever be more than that. And I think people get stuck there too. And I had to like expand my mind and just be like, and listen to people that were talking about the law of attraction, and, just really transforming the way that we think about our finances, which Megan teaches, and Trish, and um, really looking at what I value as well. And I really try to work on that, because I don't want to get stuck in needing help from the government or needing help from other people. Like, I want to be able to attract abundance into my life and really believe that I'm worth it. And it's hard when you're a solopreneur, an entrepreneur. Like, it's really hard to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I don't want to, as I hear what you're saying, and I love what you're saying because it's true. And you don't want to rely on that because, for example, it could be taken away. Plus, you want to have your own sense of worth and pride, and like, I did this, I don't need that. And I think, when I say certain things, I don't want to sound like a victim because I know that, like, when people do ask for stuff for free for many years, I did it out of, because I was raised Catholic, out of a sense of duty or guilt. And then I
Mhm.
started to resent it because I'm like, I can't keep giving this away. Who's paying?
Yeah.
Like, do you guys think I have a backer that's like, there's no billionaire backing me? Like, I have bills to pay. And my joke for years, people would be like, oh, well, come on out and you'll get exposure. I'm like, the electric company doesn't take exposure points, and neither does the gas company. So what can I do with these stupid things? Like, and I had enough exposure. I'm like, okay, this is like a nuclear plant. I'm full of exposure. Like, stop. But it was like, and then I got resentful, and because I
Mhm.
was like, I would do it and I would be pissy about it because I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, well, I guess because I'm Catholic, I got to be a good person and do this. And I'm like, yeah, let's all laugh. And then I'd be like, yeah. And you can, and then that does something to me and how I feel. And it's not a good place to be. But
Mhm.
ultimately I have to remind myself too that I'm not a victim. And that whole mindset about abundance is important, but that takes work. That's new for me.
Ooh.
And I did learn that from Megan and like this old idea of manifestation. I'll admit I was kind of poo-pooing it in the beginning, but it does make sense. And I try to think of that more when I'm like, even like sending an invoice to a client, I realize that I'm like, oh, I got to do this because I don't
Mhm.
like paperwork. But I'm like,
Mhm.
listen to myself. I'm having a bad attitude sending an invoice that's going to get me money. Why would I
Right.
put that kind of negativity around that? So
Mhm.
it is a process. And like we talked earlier, to circle back, you've got to like practice. You've got to implement these things and keep doing them because it doesn't seem natural to me to have that mindset, but I'm
Ooh.
working on it. And
Mhm.
it takes work. It absolutely takes work.
Mhm. Yeah, it definitely does. Just like everything else, it's, just training our mind. And so, yeah, I don't, because it's a process for me too. I'm sort of like right in the middle of it, and hoping that I'm in the right frame of mind to attract what I'm supposed to attract. But I still have like old negative ways of thinking, and because it's all new. I've never thought like this before. But so what I am able to do is help other people that aren't as far along as I am, because I've been where they've been. So at least I could be like, well, you got to work, try to save a little bit of money, you pay your bills, your credit goes up a little bit, then maybe one day you could buy a house. Who knows? That's what I was able to do. I was on the waiting list for Section 8 for 3 years. And then my 3 years came up. They gave me a call, and I was like, oh, you know what? I don't need this anymore. I'm buying a house. So, I went in that period of time. I don't even know what happened. I was just like doing the next right thing and like trying to be responsible and make money and pay bills. And so that's what happened. And I just love to be a part of people's process and hope that eventually they could get there too.
Yeah. And so you have the sober house, but you also do coaching as well, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
is that or sober tail? I'm sorry. I'm calling it, I'm rebranding you. You're sober tail.
Silvertail, I like that.
Sorry. That's also under whitetail, right? Or no?
So that's Whitetail Sober Coaching. So it's
Okay.
a separate LLC, but I just started that, and that's my CRS services. And like I said earlier, CRS is just a certified recovery specialist. And I'm contracted through my friend Angela Gilgallen's business called Pro Recovery. So that's sort of like the umbrella for a bunch of different CRSs to do our coaching business. And my approach is holistic, like everything we were talking about. A lot of times, CRSs typically have one way of doing things, and they work with agencies that have protocols like this is how you do it. You stay in the office, you talk about this, this, and this. But I like to teach what works for me, and that's what I do with my services.
Yeah. And I think, to go back to what we said before about mental health too, it's so important because there are different approaches to helping people. And it's not always like when people go to a counselor or a therapist or whatever, they may not jive with them and it
Hmm.
may not help. But it's interesting. I did like about a year or two, I spent helping King's College. I was doing independent work as a marketing contractor to help them with this grant they had gotten to raise awareness and educate about the opioid crisis.
Mm.
And so I learned a lot. I watched a lot of documentaries documentaries, we had guest speakers, and I kind of got a little bit into the recovery world, but I found it interesting, even in the recovery world, how there's so many different approaches and kind of disagreements about things. Like
Mm,
people who don't like the 12 step, people who
mhm,
don't believe in, like, is it the medicated treatment,
mhm,
assisted
mhm.
treatment, Subox. Oh my God, I'm blanking on how you say that.
Suboxone.
Suboxone? Is
Yeah.
that Suboxone? Right? Yeah, I'm like Suboxone. Like, and, and I'm making it sober tail coaching. I'm no people that is not corrected. Um, and learning about Narcan and how that works, and like
Mhm,
all of that stuff is so interesting. But it was again my naivety, because if you don't have a reason to learn this stuff and you don't have someone in your life, you may not learn it. And I learned it because it was my client, but like it was so interesting for me to learn. Oh, so like even people in this community don't all agree
mm.
on approaches, different approaches. And like to some, it's like, oh no, they're really against this type of, so there's, I guess the thing is find the thing that's right for you, and don't necessarily maybe listen to someone who goes, don't do that. Like maybe you need to figure out what's right for you, I guess.
Exactly. That's really what it's all about. Like recovery is very personal. And there is so much controversy, so much controversy. Some of it has to do with insurance because they won't let treatment centers prescribe certain medications, or they push certain medications in the treatment facility, and they won't give you money. They won't cover somebody's stay if you don't agree to push these kind of meds on people. Which so there's a lot of what's that word? I can't think of the word, but there's a lot of bullshit in the recovery community as well. And I've worked in the field for like over 10 years in different facilities, like inpatient, outpatient, at like a peer-to-peer resource center, and I've seen it all. And people that like are supposed to be in recovery that work in this field, I naively thought that we were all on the same page and thought that we were all approaching this the same way with like ethics and values and that being at the forefront. But once you get insurances involved and grant money and this and that, everybody's grabbing for it, and then they lose the values and morals and the whole reason why we're doing this in the first place. So, I could go on my soapbox about that for a while, but um, there's different layers. And ultimately, I love what I do because I'm always like in contact directly with the client, with the person. And there's not all these like middlemen and, tiers of people and people on the top, like pulling the strings that don't understand what's going on. Um, so, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, you're like, we could probably go on for days with this stuff, but it's true. Cause once you get, isn't it interesting? Once we get money involved, look out. Like it's suddenly things shift, and
Hmm.
how sad that is. Like you're saying, grant money and more money. And it's like, what happened to why you're
Hmm.
doing this? And suddenly it's about the money. And we need that money. I got to grab that money, when maybe it would be better used over a different place or a different, set of hands. But
Hmm.
that's, yeah. And when there's only so much of it, right, everyone's reaching for it, so
Yeah.
it's very challenging. So it's hard enough to go through and go through recovery and everything, but then you've got all this other stuff you're mentioning, and it's very interesting. So I guess, I mean, we could all get overwhelmed at so many of the things that are happening in life, but I guess again, and we're going to go full circle, it takes us back to let's be in the moment.
Mm.
And because, helping one person at a time, the person who's right in front of you, and just hoping that you can keep doing it. But like we all just need to be in the moment and doing the best that we can for ourselves and the people that we care about, I think.
Yes, and
Yeah.
thank you for bringing it full circle because that's like a constant reminder. Because I get pissed off about that sometimes because some of the girls can't pay their rent. And I know that like there's money out there that should be going towards housing and should be helping these people. And there are some resources, but they're very limited and it's really hard to get for them. So I get really frustrated. But I have to still practice like what's important, like what do I have to do? Yes, this is my business, so that's why it gets conflicting for me too, because it's a business, but it's also like I'm trying to do the next right thing and be of service, so it does make it complicated. But practicing mindfulness and just sort of trusting, I guess, the process, which sounds cliche, but just trusting because everything always does work out eventually. And I don't want to get caught up in that same kind of energy that some of the other people are getting caught up in.
Yeah. Yeah, and to see it and to witness it and go, okay, I don't want that. It's good to recognize and see what damage it could do. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And I hear you there too, because even with like with the laughter yoga that I do, I love doing it and I know how I feel and I like observing how other people react to it and feel good. But at the same time, like I get so many like, oh, because it's like a feel good type of business, but it's still a business. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm not doing this because I'm independently wealthy and I'm like a Pied Piper, like just walking like, what can I
Right.
do today, everybody? Like
Yeah.
I wish, but I shouldn't say I wish,
Mhm.
but like that's not my life.
Mhm.
It's like I have bills to pay and this is an LLC and this is
Mhm.
like everyone else. And I'm certainly, you could look at my tax returns. I'm certainly not wealthy and, spending $5,000 on caviar lunches. So like, let's be fair here.
Free up the money. Free it up.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not doing a Bezos in Venice kind of thing. That's for
Great.
sure. No way, no how.
Yep.
Well, I have enjoyed this conversation thoroughly, Rose, and I know we could continue it. So I look forward to connecting with you out and about in our wellness circles. But as I wrap up here, is there anything I will put information and I'll put the correct name? It's not Sobertail, it's Whitetail. I will put that in the show notes. Do you have like what's the best way to reach out to you? Do you have a website or Facebook, or what's the best place do you want to send people?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have a social media presence right now. With the sober house, I just have been giving out my phone number to facilities. I could leave my number and email with you. Well, you have it already, so feel free to post that. And eventually, I know Pro Recovery is working on a website which will have all of my information, so I could keep you updated with that as well. But right now, if somebody wants to look for me personally on Facebook, it's under my first full name, which is Roswitha. I don't know if you knew that, but it's Roswitha Nogan Nogan on Facebook, and that's a good way to connect as well.
I was reading that. Okay. I'll admit, I was confused because I was not confused, like, huh? I knew it was you, but I was reading it as Rose with and I
Uh-huh.
was like, is that like a little cutesy thing? Like Rose with a smile, Rose with a, like, I didn't know. I didn't know. So now is it, so it's more of like a V, Rose Vita? Is that
Yeah, it's
okay?
German, so the W is pronounced like a V.
Oh, like
Yep.
okay, I'm gonna go back to beer, which I shouldn't. Like a Vit beer, like instead of a wit, I think it's called Vit. Vit, it's like a white kind of beer. Anyway, sorry,
Yeah.
that's a bad thing to bring up after this. Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, well I thank you for telling me that because I saw that on Facebook and I did not know that. Okay,
Mhm.
well that's interesting. All right,
Yep.
so we can. Oh my god, I'm sitting here and I should have turned on lights. I'm getting like I'm like a creepy dark basement. It's not. It's just the light. I should have turned on more lights doing this, but so people can look you up on. So if they wanted you personally for coaching, they could look you up on Facebook. Is that or I know you're connected, like you said, to people in the recovery space who can help connect you with other
Yes.
people.
Right now, probably Facebook is the best way. We could connect that way. And like I said, my email and phone number, that's like a direct contact as well.
Okay. And is there anything else? I mean, we covered a lot, which, like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. Is there another point that you just like always like to make and we didn't talk about it? Anything else that you're like, okay, wait a second, I really have to say this? Anything else that we didn't cover that you just want to make a point about?
Well, I just want to say we really did touch on everything I wanted to talk about. So thank you. That was a great conversation. And I'm just really excited that I'm able to like talk to a different community, like people that may not understand addiction, because I'm used to doing this in the recovery field, and like we all know what's going on already, like everybody already knows. But so hopefully this message hits somebody, maybe even a family member, that might want to learn a little bit more. Um, but I think we pretty much hit everything. And if anybody is interested in learning anything else or needs extra help, I'm always here.
Great. Okay. And like I said, I will put Rose's information in the show notes. And, so don't be afraid to reach out. And if you're out and about, that's another good thing. You don't have to be, here's an important thing too, as we close. I was just, I mentioned in the beginning about being out there connecting with people. As Rose mentioned, it's everyone's comfort, but she can be out somewhere. There might be alcohol around, but there's also networking events that don't involve alcohol. So, there's a lot of times they're in the morning. NEPA Networkers is local. So if you're someone who you want to be out there because you want to like try to connect with people to get a job or to learn about different things, they do coffee networking events. So there is stuff out there, if that makes you more comfortable. So keep that in mind when you're heading out and just connecting with people. And any kind of, I think, meetings or groups or anything like that, you can connect with people who have like-mindedness or similar interests. I think that's always helpful to us personally and possibly professionally if you're looking for some kind of employment. So thank you again, Rose. I loved this conversation. I look forward to talking to you more in person and working with you, collaborating. And to my listeners, in a couple weeks, what do we got on tap here? I keep saying we, like, again, it's my crew. That's everybody behind me, and that mask that's on the wall, it whispers things to me. Um, I have someone that I'm working on getting a date with her to talk. She's involved with a STEM program in Scranton, which I think is really exciting, and she gets a lot of young women involved, which I think is great. Another woman that I connected through another friend connected me to her, and I have to talk to her. She's like a survivalist. So I'm really excited to talk to her, especially around the whole, now that I'm doing the forest therapy, but to learn from her about surviving, because I might love being outdoors, but that's different from being able to survive outdoors. That is not something I think I could really handle too well. But so those are folks that are coming up in the weeks ahead. And as I always say too, if there's someone that you know of, if it's you or a friend, an interesting woman that you think should be on the podcast, please reach out. Also, if you're interested in supporting this podcast, I'm excited. I won't announce it now, but in August, I'm taking on a new podcast sponsor. So if you're someone who would like to support these kinds of conversations, reach out to me. I am on social media as well, Janine Luby or Funny Wine Girl. Janine on Facebook and Instagram, and I think that should about cover it. Because if you let me, I will talk all day. So let's leave it there. As I say each week, I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my wine glass.